Hi, I'm former NFL quarterback Gus Frerotte. I played quarterback 15 years in the NFL. This is my show called Huddle Up with Gus. Each week I team up with my longtime friend Dave Hager, and we talk with guests about how sports shape their lives. Pro athletes, business executives, community leaders, everyone has a story to tell about sports. We invite you to Huddle Up with Gus. This week in the Huddle.
Born a football blue blood, this two-time Super Bowl champion has established himself with distinction on and off the field. The second overall pick in the 2008 draft, he retired last month after 11 seasons in the NFL. Known as much for his philanthropy as his 70 career sacks, his generosity has helped people across the globe. A recently named Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year, please welcome into the Huddle my good friend, Chris Long.
All right, Dave, Today we got a great guest on, very good friend of mine, played in the NFL for 10, 11 years, I'm not sure. It seems like forever, but just an outstanding human, Walter Payton Man of the Year award winner, just has been for every community that he's ever lived in, he's tried to do something and be a part of it. So today we're going to have on my good friend Chris Long, and so I think we should have a really fun time with this interview. And so welcome to the Huddle, Chris, and we appreciate you coming on with us today.
Thanks, dude. What's up?
So you were born in California. What do you remember about California?
Man, not much. It was the first 8 years of my life. I remember little things here and there. I certainly remember the tail end of my dad's career, because the first 5 years I was around, I really didn't have any idea what was going on or the significance of it. I think in his last couple of years, I remember starting to realize that he did something pretty cool for a living. We'd go to like the Pro Bowl, and we actually joked about this the other day, because I took Waylon to Earth City to go to Isaac Bruce's thing a couple days ago, and I got a picture with Waylon and Isaac Bruce. I said, Waylon, you're going to want this picture down the line. And Waylon just like, yeah, whatever, because he's 3 years old. And my dad laughed, and he's like, I used to take you to the Pro Bowl all the time, and you meet people like Barry Sanders, and you'd have no idea who they were. So that was kind of how I consumed my dad's career. He was just my dad, and we were just, living in Cali, and he played football for a living, but I had no idea the significance of it. And it wasn't really till the Hall of Fame and all that stuff that I started to get it. In the Hall of Fame by then I kind of understood. But first 8 years of my life, it was a cool place to grow up. We grew up in South Bay, Redondo Beach, then moved to Palos Verdes for the last couple of years. And my pops just, being from back east, wanted to get us out of the West Coast. Said it was going to be a tough place to raise kids. It was a turbulent time in the early 90s. So. It was the best thing ever happened to me. I love Virginia. It's home still for me. I live in Charlottesville. I'm living at my parents' house right now, so it's hard to get away. They're working on my house, so we are family of four living with my folks. So I'm definitely a homebody, and Virginia's home.
Fresh out of retirement and into your parents' house.
Yeah, it's a tough transition. I don't know too many guys that play 11 years in the league and make enough money for their own pad, but they move into their parents' house when they finish. I mean, retirement can suck in some ways. It can be awesome in a lot of ways. And I think part of it is just like you need to time it well. I thought about like, hey, should I retire in the spring if I'm thinking about it, because maybe I'll be happiest then, like I'll be most relaxed. Maybe should I do it during camp, because then I'll be like, yes, I don't have to go to camp. Should I not do it in the dead of summer because I don't have much going on? You need to stay busy. What I really shouldn't have done was retired right before I had to move into my parents' house, because this has made the transition crazy. But we're having a good time, and my parents are great grandparents, and chasing Waylon around and helping out with my 6-month-old Luke. It's just I'm up late watching games with my dad. I was up watching the finals, the Blues games with my dad. It's been fun, honestly. Spatially, it's not like you have your own house, but it is nice to like wake up in the morning, go eat breakfast with my dad and my mom, and then watch games with my dad at night. It's pretty cool.
So do you still do so when Gunnar and Gabe come home, right? I'm always making them work in the yard, cut the grass, do something. I'm like, you guys got to do this. You're coming home. I'm paying for college. You got to do it. Does your dad make you do any chores around the house?
Well, so I've been trying to just volunteer, stuff as much as I can. Every night I go get us dinner. I offer to do yard work because I actually like to do yard work. When I grew up, my dad used to make me, I think, just to instill hard work. He used to just make me do pointless yard work tasks, like move the mulch over there, like this giant mound of mulch, and then it had to go somewhere else. So it never really needed to go over there. So I kind of didn't catch on at that point, but he was giving me pointless tasks just to get me to work. And he actually made me get a job in masonry when I was 15. And of course, I saved up all that money to buy the ugliest possible accessories for my F-150 possible. I mean, every chrome accessory, chrome door handles, a brush guard, dual exhaust, all that ugly crap. I had the big Ford sticker on the back with the lady laying on the Ford sticker, the silhouette of that hot babe laying on the Ford sticker. And so, my dad made me do a lot of chores growing up, but it's kind of lightened up. Actually, now I got to kind of twist their arm to make me do anything. They're great hosts, and I feel kind of like I'm stealing being around the house.
Now, growing up with you have two brothers, it had to be a very competitive environment. Probably got you into sports early.
Yeah. I mean, it was, and we were encouraged to play. We were encouraged to play every sport we could. So I played 4 sports in high school. My brothers played a bunch of sports, and I think we were encouraged to find our own way. It wasn't just about football, and certainly we took to football in our own different ways. Kyle in the league now for 8 years. My brother Howie working for the Raiders. But the competition was mostly between my younger brothers, Howie and Kyle, because they were only a year apart. Being Irish twins or whatever you call it, that certainly, heightened the sense of hey, we're in this foxhole together, and we're going to be best friends sometimes, and we're going to be enemies every other day. They would come home from school and they were lumped up because they were fighting each other, or I had to break it up all the time. I was the older brother. I was, a few years older than Kyle. So it wasn't like me and Kyle were really in competition much, and him and Howie were mostly fighting.
So who was the boss of the house? Was it your mom or was it your dad when you guys got in trouble?
Oh, the boss of the house. Well, Dad was certainly, he was feared, but my mom, the one with the nuclear code is the one you got to fear. I mean, because she's the one who can, when he's on the road, when he was doing the Fox show or whatever, it was one phone call, and it was almost worse if my mom called and said, "Hey, these boys are running me ragged," than if we did something right in front of my dad.
Chris, was your mom athletic?
She would say yes. She plays tennis. She's good at tennis. What she is she's real competitive. She's a really good swimmer. My mom is very competitive, underratedly competitive, and my dad gets a lot of credit for all that. But I take after my mom as much as I take after my dad and personality. So, she's been a big part of kind of shaping me as a person and an athlete. But yeah, she won her doubles match the other day, so I should probably note that.
Yeah, she'll probably like to hear that. Did you have some when you were young and growing up? We talked about your parents. Who were the coaches that made a big impact in your life?
Oh man, I could go from the beginning up. My little league baseball coach, Chris Miller, who was a tremendous guy, taught me a lot about hard work and teamwork. That was my first real serious commitment. Little league baseball. Before that, it's kind of you're committed, but you're picking daisies in the outfield. That sort of thing. You turn 9, it's okay, you're in the big leagues. You get drafted to the McIntyre Little League here in Charlottesville. Chris Miller is this legendary coach who coached the Elks. We were black and yellow. We were like the badass team, and he was the badass coach. You know, he always had a wad of Levi Garrett right here, and he was just the type of guy that would try to teach kids about life and about sports, and he's a guy that's still coaching there. 22
Wow.
years later, still coaching the Elks.
What
And,
position were you on the
I've gone
Elks?
and seen him once or twice. I took Waylon to meet him last year. Just a good man. And then guys like Sammy Beal, who anybody from Charlottesville would know, who was a batting coach, who I would go in his warehouse for hours, and he would just pitch till his arm fell off. And he threw the nicest BP. I mean, he was just that guy that had the sweetest BP. And he would literally, dead of winter, no heat in his warehouse down there downtown, and he would just throw to kids all day, and he would teach you about work ethic, and I learned a lot about repetition and work ethic through him. And he passed away about a year ago, but really affected countless lives in the Charlottesville area. And then, you know, high school coaches, John Blake, my football coach, learned a lot from him. You know, he's certainly somebody I still keep in touch with. Al Groh to me is like a family member. You know, he's a guy who really turned me into a man. You know, when I got to college, I wasn't necessarily a man. Physically, I was a man, but mentally, I hadn't fully developed. And he was somebody who took me to the brink of quitting. And, you know, from there, it was one of those things where I had to make a decision. Am I a quitter or can I push past that? And so I credit him for all that mental toughness I needed through my career. So I had a bunch of coaches, and like I mentioned, you know, working masonry taught me a lot about hard work, and you know, that was only 1 year, but if it weren't for my dad putting me in the right leagues, in the right situations, like hooking me up with Sammy Beal, you know, counseling me to go to UVA, although that was my decision, you know, these people wouldn't have been in my life. So my family did a great job of surrounding me with people.
Chris, we're going to move on a little more about your high school career at, I think they call it Stab. Is that what they call it?
St. Anne's, yeah, St. Anne's Belfield.
So who was your best buddy at St. Anne's?
Man, you know, I'm lucky, man. I've got a lot of them. I still got a lot of them, and that's what I love about, you know, home here. I mean, there's 100 great places to live, but for me, home is home, and that's kind of like, I know you feel the same way with Pittsburgh. You know, you love St. Louis, and St. Louis, you guys were happy as hell there, but like home just calls you back, and you know, for me, I've had an opportunity to live in St. Louis. I've had an opportunity to live in Boston. I've had an opportunity to live in Philly. All great cities in their own right. I've been around the world. I've been to LA, you know, spent time there training, Miami. Man, there's a ton of places I could live, but I live here because of my friends. And you know that, and I think it's beautiful, and it's just where I grew up.
Chris, how would you describe yourself in high school? Like, I know you're a multi-sport star most likely, but like big man on campus. What, like, did you have other interests? What was Chris Long like in high school?
I was just the same way I am now, just a little bit different. Marched the beat of my own drummer, and I think I was a good kid, but I certainly wasn't mature. I mean, I was probably more mature than other kids in a lot of ways, but you know, I had a lot to learn about, you know, hard work, about focus, you know, and a lot of growing up to do, you know. So I think, you know, when you look back at yourself, whether you're in high school or college or your early 20s, and, you know, not to digress too much, but I just feel like you're never a finished product. And when I look back at myself in high school or all those stages, you're like, man, I've grown a lot. And I think that's what's pretty cool. And I think even into your 30s, you're still growing up. And I'll look back at myself hopefully 5 years from now and be like, what the hell was I doing? Or like, you know, there's certain things that I can improve at all the time. And high school, it just shows you how far you come. But I like to play pranks the same way I did in St. Louis. You know, you probably heard we used to like to play a bunch of pranks. You know, we would, this probably pissed a lot of people off. My buddies, we'd egg each other's houses and paintball each other's cars up and you know, all sorts of shenanigans that probably wasn't so funny to the parents of those kids and vice versa. But we were always, just playing pranks and having fun. And I like to, in high school, the same thing I like to do now, hang out with my buddies and stay active and play sports.
So you would hang out with your buddies. I would do the same thing in high school. We'd all hang out. We'd have a lot of fun. But you cross that white line. Like, that was one thing that I always learned from my dad. You cross that white line, it doesn't matter what you were doing before. You go out and play, and you play hard. And I've always done that. Were you kind of like that too?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, for me, my dad's whole thing was, whatever you do, I don't care if you're a football player. I don't care if you're a, firefighter. I don't care if you're, whatever you do for a living, you take pride in it. And that was something for me, that you take pride in your work, and I took pride in my work and everything I did. And looking back on it, there was one thing.
Even paintballing cars. Even paintballing cars.
Yeah, even paintballing cars, we went all out. I mean, like, literally went all out. Like, I probably shouldn't go all the way into it, but we had some pretty spectacular paintball battles that probably spilled over into areas that they shouldn't have spilled over into. But I had a lot to learn about focus. But maybe I misspoke earlier. I knew I got hard work pretty early. I got what it was like to grind it out early. I was 3-sport athlete. I was after every basketball practice, I had a weight program. I was in the weight room till 9 at night, training for football, and it's the winter. So I was on a college type schedule. In baseball, I would take batting practice as much as I could. In football, I was obsessed with my craft, and I took pride in never missing games. I took pride in all that stuff. I think I understood what it was all about to work hard pretty early. But I didn't have a lot of adversity. I mean, I had adversity. I had doubters. You're always going to have that. I think that's kind of the sexy thing now, is to say I had adversity. I had doubters, and everybody did. I mean, I had people that, I had people that, because of who my pops was, or because I went to a private school, and all the public school football circles and everything,
Right.
It was, he's only getting a scholarship because of his dad. He's only all state because of his dad. Like, anything I did was, hey, it's because of your pops. So, I mean, that was my adversity. I had a lot of people doubt me there, and I wasn't necessarily a great player right off the bat. I was actually a bad football player until, 9th, 10th grade. And so, I mean, my 9th grade year, we were in the state championship, and I didn't play a lick. I mean, so it wasn't like I was this stud right off the bat. So I had to work and grind that out. And that was kind of what I was like. And yeah, I mean, I didn't take shit from anybody. I mean, when I played football, or whatever I was doing, we were liable to throw down. I mean, it was just like, that was what competing was. And it wasn't just football. I mean, there were a bunch of sports I learned a lot from, playing baseball, playing travel baseball, going and getting humbled by these country dudes out here in Virginia that would just kick your ass. And they were a lot tougher than you. They had mustaches earlier than you. And I mean, that's what playing a bunch of sports is all about. I mean, it's encountering different people that you wouldn't play with at your private school or in your circle.
Who was the first college that started recruiting you? Was it Virginia?
Well, I remember I got a couple of my first letters, and I thought they were a huge deal, like just a letter. I had a letter from like the Cal Bears, and it was like one of my first ones, and I remember like just kind of freaking out. And I actually opened it. I remember I was down at the Shell station below my high school, and I was getting some BC powder. Remember BC powder?
What's
I was
BC
taking
powder?
BC powder. It's like Advil, powder Advil.
Oh,
That
okay.
you just put in your water. It's total like construction worker, like get through your day. That's how I was working. I was taking BC powder in high school, but I was going down to the Shell station to get my BC powder, and I sat there in the parking lot, and I read my letter, and I was like, holy shit, I got a shot here. Like, I didn't know I was this good. I didn't know the letter wasn't a big deal. It was a bigger deal probably back then. Nowadays, it's like, any little thing is like, you're a Hall of Famer if you get recruited at all nowadays with these kids. But I was excited. It kind of empowered me, and I thought, okay, I got a shot at this thing. And Virginia gave me my first offer, but I'd kind of made up my mind that I wanted to stay home. And when Virginia offered me my junior year, it was Virginia, UNC, or Virginia Tech in my head. Florida State, I used to love watching them on TV, but they just didn't it didn't look like I'd fit scheme wise there, and I was getting told I wasn't athletic enough. So I chose Virginia, and Al Groh gave me my first offer, and I just took it because part of it is I didn't understand the whole process, and part of it was like, this is where I want to go. Why go through the process?
Right.
This is home for me, and this is what I want, and I don't regret it. Things worked out.
Did your mom save all your clippings and everything?
Yeah, I got a good bit of stuff. She's even doing it now. Like I walked in the house and I saw like there's a newspaper of me like in the local newspaper about retirement and like this, that, and the third sitting out. But I was like, back when she was doing it, I kind of understood it, but I definitely understand it now. It's funny because my dad has all his stuff, and it's not like he pulls it out and shows me his clippings, but like it's good that he has them. It's one of those things. It's not like you parade them around, but it's good you have them. And the one thing I'm excited about keeping after football is all those jerseys I got to trade with guys, and the newspaper articles. That's cool, but that's a sign of media respect, which. That's one thing, but respect from your peers. That's the kind of stuff that I'm definitely gonna cherish.
How many jerseys do you have?
Man, I probably have over 20. I mean, I probably got 25 of them.
So who's your favorite? Which one do you cherish the most?
Man, my last couple of years when I realized that I was maybe not trying to play a lot longer, I was trading a lot, and my first favorite one that I got in St. Louis was Justin Smith. That was in probably 2011 or 2012. And then lately, I got a Marshawn Lynch jersey. So I got my beast mode after we played them in Philly on like a 10-degree night, and he was just running hard as shit still. Yeah. We won like 13-7. I got his jersey. I got, my Michael Bennett. I've got my Fletcher Cox. I got my Aaron Donald. I got some of the best Robert Quinn, William Hayes, some of the best D linemen I play with. But, lately I think a Marshawn Lynch was a real cool jersey to have, and the Justin Smith early on.
Chris, we went through kind of your youth a little bit, going on to college now. Your first years at college, obviously, it's kind of home for you. But what was that first season of football? What did you learn from that first season of football at UVA?
Well, at UVA, I learned about. I was never arrogant at all, but college is going to humble you. If you have any humbling to be done, college football is going to do it. I don't know about nowadays. I don't know what it's like now, but going to play for Al Groh, who falls from that Parcells Belichick tree, that whole thing. Learning the 3-4, playing a 4-eye in, inside eye of the tackle, rather than rushing the edge. Here I was in high school, just getting ready to start learning how to really be technical. As a pass rusher in high school, you're getting by on athleticism and hard work. When you get to college, you're honing your craft a little bit, and switching positions to me was like, it was crazy. And my first 2 years, I don't think anybody else saw me as struggling, but I thought I was struggling because I was out of scheme and I was learning a new thing. And frankly, it was just really hard. And yeah, I almost transferred. My sophomore year, I think it was, I looked at some other schools, and I was on the cusp of but I didn't have the balls to do it. Honestly, it was just like, in my heart of hearts, I wanted to do it, but I was like, it seemed disloyal. I just didn't want to do it. And, it was all scheme driven for me. It was like, this playing, read technique, inside eye of the tackle, It's stunning my development, and honestly, I'm not having fun. And I was really glad I stuck it out, because my junior year, spring game, I came out and kind of set it on fire a little bit, and people were like, "Damn, dude, you got a lot better," and had a bunch of sacks, and I started to feel good, and just from there, I felt a lot better about it, and me and Coach Groh became like, he really leaned on me as a leader, and that kind of being on the cusp of quitting or doing something else taught me a lot, because I didn't have that in high school. I mean, that was the adversity I didn't have.
Hey, Chris, how would you describe game day in the ACC? We hear about the SEC at nauseum,
Yeah.
but what was the ACC football like?
You could hear a stray fan here or there. You'd watch a Duke UNC game. You watch Virginia play. I mean, listen, at Virginia, we had it rocking at Scott Stadium. We'd pack a stadium full of 60,000 people. In those years, we had 8, 9, 10 wins, whatever. But it depended on the stadium. Virginia Tech, Lane Stadium, as crazy as almost any SEC atmosphere, in my opinion. UNC is going to be more chill. Duke's going to be way more chill. Duke, you had to walk like half a mile to get to the stadium from your locker room. Before the renovation, it wasn't anything to speak of. Maryland was like a city, atmosphere, which is a little different. Yeah, I mean, it depended on the school. We had a couple outliers like an FSU or a Virginia Tech that were like SEC and then some. And then there's Clemson, which I never played down at Death Valley, but most of the other schools are kind of you're going to get your noon games, your sporadic attendance. Virginia, though, we had it rocking pretty good.
Chris, you mentioned Al Groh as a big influence in your life. Who was a non-football influence while you were in college?
Other than alcohol, other than the Biltmore, going to the Biltmore on Thursday nights for $2 pitchers. Man, actually, I don't know. It was Tuesday $2 pitchers. I would say just my non-football. I mean, non-coaches. I just spent all day in the foxhole, man, with my teammates. So my teammates were big influences on me. I mean, they were people I live with, having to live with different people. You grow up your whole life living with just your family. Your mom's cooking you breakfast. You leave some laundry on the couch. It's not a big deal.
Right.
Actually, it wasn't a big deal in college either, because we were slobs. But living with different people from different cultures, having to go through adversity with your friends, holding each other accountable. That's a different accountability than a coach, is having a teammate or a roommate or a brother kind of put you in check, or you do vice versa. And that shaped me a lot.
Yeah. I know e-gaming is big now. What was the game that you guys all played? If you had a bunch of roommates and teammates, there was something you were playing back in college that you guys couldn't get away from.
Competed everything we did. We play Xbox. It was like people were getting ready to fight each other. If we played Fight Night on Xbox, and you knock somebody out, it was like we might be out in the parking lot, over it.
Right.
We'd play, NBA 2K. We play all that stuff. We just did everything together, and that's what I think people miss about the game.
Now, did you meet your wife in college?
Yeah, I met my wife in college. She played lacrosse at UVA, and we dated on and off through the first couple years. She's as stubborn as me, so we definitely tested each other. And then
did she ever play Edward 40 Hands?
She never played Edward 40 Hands, but she could drink Natty Light. So we had a good respect for each other's schedules. Her going through college athletics and me at the same time, so it worked out well that way. And I think that really helped us understand each other as we got out of school. And the big sacrifice of moving to St. Louis with no friends there, nothing, taking a job there, and then obviously working at Burroughs where you knew Meg from, Gus, coaching there, great lacrosse coach, really good with kids, and built a lacrosse company from the ground up and won a state title at Burroughs. And like, listen, the only person that screwed that up was me. I mean, the fact that we didn't stay in St. Louis for the off season every year, we both wanted to get back to Virginia some, kind of got away with that stuff. And then kids and moving to different teams. But listen, I'm pretty sure if she wanted to, pick up the clipboard today, she could coach just about anywhere. And obviously, helps to have somebody at this stage that you've known since college.
Yeah, she's definitely a wonderful coach. The girls absolutely loved her. My daughter was a goalie for her, and her experience because she won a national championship at UVA, didn't she?
Yep. National.
Yeah.
Well, no, she was in the Final Four a few times.
Final Four.
She would get mad at me if I said you won the national championship, right? Because they got in it a few times, and I just remember she'd complain about losing in the Final Four a couple of years, and I'm like, dude, at least you're in the Final Four. Like, we are struggling to get to the Meineke Car Care Bowl here. But yeah, I mean, they got a great program, and they were, really some cool girls, man, that she played with, and still keeps in touch with a lot of them.
And she's super competitive, right?
Very competitive, almost more competitive than me in a lot of ways, because she competes at stupid stuff where I can kind of like, I'm not that person that like you hear about certain athletes that like, if we're playing, they won't let a kid win in like playing horse. Like, that's not me. My wife, yeah, she might beat our kid in horse. I mean, she like, listen, we used to like play tennis to mess around. Like, she was picking up tennis, and I would just sky the ball in the air just to piss her off, like just sky it. Because I can't hit it straight, and it really threw her off. And I was beating her in tennis, and I'm not very good. I'm not claiming to be good, but she would storm off the court, like, and we would be in an argument for a day because she was mad about tennis. And she's just a competitor, man. That's just kind of is what it is.
Did you ever play your mom in tennis?
No, because she'd actually beat me. I mean, and it's all about matchups because, like, my wife can beat my mom can beat my wife, but I can't beat my mom, I don't think. I mean, she's just more technical, where Meg's, like, more reliant on athleticism and grit.
But you could beat your dad.
Yeah, I could probably beat my dad, but he's pretty good. My dad's one of those guys that can pick up any sport and like, just kind of my brother Kyle, where like anything they touch just turns to gold. Like, my dad can pick up a golf club, hit it straight 300 yards, probably play badminton at an elite level, probably like just anything he does. And my brother's the same way. Me, I got to grind it out a little bit more.
Chris, let's go through some of your pro career now. You get drafted by the Rams. We know that probably was really emotional for you, but you also know you're going to the Rams. How'd you feel about that?
You put it right. I mean, like, listen, I never thought of getting drafted as an accomplishment. Maybe for me, because my dad's done everything I've done, it kind of always kept me in a mind state of like, you haven't accomplished anything. And so I think that was a blessing, because I needed that mindset when I got to St. Louis. I needed to go in there with a clear head. And, I knew that, my junior year, I sent in my draft grade, and it came back a low first round grade, high second. And I was advised to leave. But I said, I'd really like to stay. I think not only can I improve my draft stock, but I want to finish with my teammates. And in some ways, it was the best decision I ever made. In some ways, it's the worst decision I ever made because financially, in the old CBA, if you were a top 5 draft pick, you're set. And so in a lot of ways, that was great. And I had a great senior year. I proved a lot of people wrong. I had 14 sacks or whatever, was up for a lot of awards, and my draft stock climbed, and I knew I was going to be a top 5 pick. But what happens when you're a top 5 pick is you're going to a bad team, and the pressure is going to be higher. And, for a pass rusher, The trade-off to getting paid all that money is you're probably going to be on a team that doesn't have a lot of leads and doesn't have a lot of pieces around you, and people are going to want you to be a double-digit guy every year, and it's just not realistic early on. Depending on the guy, listen, I always thought of myself as more of a grinder, not a generational talent type guy. I mean, you look at a guy like Von Miller. I mean, Von Miller, you put him anywhere, he's going to go get 13. I'm a guy that, I'm going to be up around that double digit number, but it's hard. And it took 2 years, honestly, to learn from the 3-4 back to the 4-3. I talked about switching to the 3-4 in college. So switching to the 4-3, man, we were not very good. There wasn't a lot of time to get home, and there weren't a lot of opportunities. And honestly, I was just kind of swimming my first year. I ended up, had a solid first year. I had 4 or 5 sacks. And then the second year, there was a lot of adversity for me because, you're expecting people to take that leap in the second year or third year. Usually with pass rushers, I always think third, but nobody's going to wait that long when you're a top 5 pick. Through 8 games, I had no sacks. And you know what people start doing? They start using that B word. And they, it's 4 letters. And they say, this guy, he's not going to pan out. He's just going to be all right, but he's not. And man, like I was close to kind of not giving up, but I was like, well, maybe I am. Like maybe I'm not that good. And then the second half of the year, I had 5, 6 sacks. I finished my second year, I think, with 5, and they all came in the second half. So an 8-game run with those type of numbers are good. And then in my third year, really took a big leap. Was one of the best pressure guys in the league, and had 8.5, and really on another bad team. So and then from there, it just kept. Through my prime there in St. Louis, it kept building up, and that 8.5 year started a 4-year span where I had 40, actually 41, I think. So averaging 10 over 4 years was a great stretch for me. St. Louis, we never got over the hump. That took me through the Steve Spagnuolo era, the Jim Haslett interim era, the Lenahan era, and then after Spags was Jeff Fisher, who gave me that big contract and made me enjoy football again, honestly, because he was such a fun coach to play for, brought in like the right type of guys. We just couldn't get it right offensively. And as you know, if you got a franchise quarterback who you can't keep healthy, you can't keep him upright. Sam blew his knee out a couple times. That year he blew his knee out against Cleveland in the preseason. I think that year we had a chance to be a 10-win team and get in the playoffs.
Well, tell us about that transition to New England.
Phone rings, and it's Brendan Daly, who used to coach me in St. Louis, and he's like, you should think about New England. I'm like, yeah, I'll think about it. He's like, all right, well, just stay tuned. So I'm in the grocery store, picking up groceries, and all of a sudden phone rings, and I'm like, hello. It's like, hello, Chris. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, who's this? It's like, it's Bill Belichick. And I'm like, oh, yes, sir. Let me get to the front of the grocery store where there's better reception, sir. So I get to the front, and, I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm interested in coming up for a visit and whatever. And he's like, listen, I don't have a role for you. I don't know what that is schematically, because obviously they run a different scheme. He's like, but I feel like if we can work this out, this is something that we don't need to specify what you're going to be doing or how much. Like, we'll find something. And I was like, all right, cool. So I go up and visit, and
then, so who called you from Philly?
I called Philly. I had a buddy that worked there, and I was like, you know what? Like, I'd like to play there if you guys would be interested. And my buddy Ian Cunningham brought it to Howie Roseman, who I'm certain didn't think much of me, and they kind of,
I bet he does now,
a vet minimum kind of deal under the guise of, hey, we don't have much money, but in a year, I promise we'll do right by you if you play well. And signed there. I really don't think they had a lot of respect for me as an organization when I signed there. And that's fine. I think they thought I was out of gas.
Right.
But that motivated me, and it ended up being great. Yeah, it ended up being a great 2 years. And honestly, if I had never played in Philly, I don't think my career would feel as satisfied as if I walked off the field in Houston for Super Bowl. Was it 50?
Did you know that Aaron Donald
Aaron?
was going to be as good as he is?
Oh yeah, yeah. I would like to credit myself with being the first person to know he was going to be amazing. And if you ask him, he'll tell you. I mean, like when he got to St. Louis, it was very clear he was going to be special. I think we used to joke his rookie camp that he was going to be in the Hall of Fame, but I kind of wasn't joking. And I've never seen anybody work so hard, who had so much talent, and play so violent, and play with such tenacity. This guy would fight you on the field at the drop of a hat, and I respect that about him. And outworks everybody. I would be the last person in the film room usually at the end of camp, and I would go in there and watch tape once everybody was at home. And I started going in there and opening the door and turn the lights on to find my pen or my notebook, and he was in there every night.
Well, hey, Chris, we in Pittsburgh like to think that's the Pittsburgh in him, all that you just described.
Yeah. Well, I do. I will say this. I talked to a lot of guys about this, from Avonte Maddox to, Aaron, to any of the guys I play with from Pitt, honestly. In their own ways, they just have a great edge to them, a good confidence, a good edge, very competent right off the bat, pro-ready, hardworking, and not to recruit for Pitt, but, I mean, these guys are consistently great pros.
Well, it's funny because Gus and I were just talking about this. My brother-in-law played defensive end at Pitt in the mid-'90s. They were terrible teams, but they had a disproportional amount of guys that ended up making the league.
Yeah.
Not necessarily stars, but a lot of guys from 1 in 10 teams or whatever ended up playing NFL for a few years. And it's just it's unusual amount for a team that bad.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but there's certainly a toughness in the water up there with y'all's teams, whether they're pro sports teams or obviously college teams. So, and for AD being a Pittsburgh guy, grew up there too, he's very proud of it. And I think that's pretty cool, man. He's a guy that doesn't forget where he comes from. And he's a guy that, he's the best football player in the world, in my opinion.
What? So you've been through all this. You go to Philly, you win a championship. New England win a championship. Some bad years in St. Louis, but there's something that always kind of I felt like you brought to every city is your willingness to do charity and to put yourself out there for the betterment of people and the community. So where did that come from? Because your foundation, Chris Long Foundation, WATERBOYS.org, so many things.
Yeah, for me, it has to do with I don't like wasting time, and I'm constantly on the move. I feel like I'm busier now in retirement than I was when I played, but I'm not going to let myself not be busy and not be productive. And listen, the thing about football is, and I learned this, is you can work as hard as you want. Hard work pays off in the pros or in life. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think hard work gives you a chance. I saw a lot of players that worked their ass off for years and didn't get any payoff. A guy like James Hall, who never got to, be on a winning team, who was a mentor of mine. Guys like that. So I never, on the field, you could prepare your ass off. You could have a bad game. You could work hard as a team. You could still suck. If you have the means and you have the platform off the field, your work is going to turn into productivity one way or another. What you put into it, you get out of it. And so I think that's a beautiful thing about the work we can do as players is, we walk off the field where it's really hard to get out what you put in. That's not a guarantee. And you walk into our communities that support us, and if you put in the work, you're going to get something out of it. I'm not saying you, you're going to get productivity out of it. That's going to better the community. And I just think for me, like my mom, who's on the board of the Boys and Girls Club, my dad was a Boys and Girls Club kid, didn't have what I have growing up, and he gave me that through football. I can't forget, what that was for my dad a generation ago, and I don't want to act like I don't care about people that don't live like me. So I just love people. I love our fans. I love the communities we played in. And so for me, we've been given a lot. It'd be a waste of a career not to give back.
I mean, I think it's fair to say 10 years from now, Chris could be remembered as much for his off the field generosity and effort as he was on the field.
Well,
unfortunately, I think it's already happened.
Now, Chris, I think one of the best things we had, our first show that we did was with Roberto Clemente Jr. And so Roberto Clemente Jr. talked about how he lost his identity because when people met him, they thought they were meeting his dad. And so he really had a hard time finding himself. And I was just telling Dave and Ann, my wife, the other day that what you've done that is so remarkable is that you've made a name for yourself. A lot of people who would have the dad, Howie Long, would say, oh, you're Howie Long's kid. But now it's oh, you're Chris Long. Your dad was a good football player. And you've done an excellent job of making a name for yourself, not only on the field, but off the field. And I think that's so powerful, and it speaks to who you are and not to kind of what your name is.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. I want to do all this stuff. Like, listen, I donated my salary. That blew up. But the reason we did it was to engage fans. I get a little uncomfortable with, some of the attention we get for what we do as a foundation because this is the bare minimum. I mean, like, to me, this is what you do if you're a pro athlete. Somehow you do something to help people.
Yeah, and I think it's so important what you're doing. I know you talked about getting attention, but that's what it's all about, being a pro football player, is having that platform, grabbing that attention so that you can create whatever it is you need, whether it's you raising funds or bringing attention to somewhere in Africa that needs a well because people don't have water and they're not going to live if they don't. Right. And it's so important.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, and that a lot of that just stems from just opening your horizons and being like, I want to see outside my own bubble, and that's what made me go to Tanzania the first time. And I went with James Hall, who we talked about earlier. I talked him into climbing Kilimanjaro with me, and kind of from there, I kind of fell in love with the place, and it was at that same time I was trying to start my foundation, and I said, hey, here's a real efficient way to change the world through clean water. And 61 wells later, I think we've served 225,000 people in East Africa. We're moving into Kenya. We're moving into some domestic projects. We are transitioning into the NBA. We've already transitioned into that. Malcolm Brogdon has started his version of WATERBOYS called Hoops 2.0. So we're moving along, and I think it all starts by just opening your horizons and saying, hey, I want to do more than just be a football player. If you let football define you, that's all you're going to be.
Chris, we do this. This is our last episode, our last part of the show. It's called No Huddle. We pepper you with a bunch of questions. Just give us your answers as quick as you can. And if you're too slow, we'll throw a flag when we edit it, and it's a lot of fun. So Dave usually starts with the questions.
Hey, Chris, if you could trade places with anyone in the world for one day, who would that be?
Kawhi Leonard.
That's a good one.
Now.
My man is a beast on the basketball court.
Yeah, dude. And he lives in Toronto. Life is good.
Yeah. You'd like that.
Hey, Chris, who's the biggest non-sports celebrity in your phone?
Probably Jeff Ament. I mean, like, he's not a big celebrity, but he's my favorite I've got some cool ones, but he's bass guitar for Pearl Jam.
Oh yeah, that'd be a good one. I know you're a huge music guy, and you go to Bonnaroo every year, right?
Yeah, but maybe not this year. It's sad.
You're breaking tradition now.
Life's gotten in the way.
What's the last concert you've been to?
The last show I've been to, that's going to be. I'll tell you the next one I'm going to probably is My Morning Jacket at Red Rocks in August.
Who's your favorite person you follow on Twitter?
Man, PFT commenter, probably. I like Rob Delaney a lot. I need a little laughs on Twitter. I mean, nowadays, so I prefer a funny follow.
So Dave and our favorite is Blocker Charge. Do you follow that one?
Oh, yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you see where the lady was spinning under the helicopter?
Unbelievable. I was showing my mom that last night. It was hard not to laugh because she's okay.
The chairlift one yesterday was unbelievable.
I didn't see that one.
The chairlift out of control. Wow.
That's the one. I saw that one.
Dave, he's excited about it.
Yeah, no, that was unbelievable. Those people at the beginning getting flung off, and then everyone just bailing out as it
I saw that one too. Okay, yeah, I saw that one too. Yeah,
All right, so what's the most memorable sporting event you've ever been to that you didn't play in?
Virginia basketball national championship
this year.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, you were loving it, weren't you?
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Me and my buddies, we went. Heath Miller, Pittsburgh. We went, and me and Heath got on Sports Illustrated on the cover. We were in the background cheering. Actually, I think Heath's face is kind of blocked, but that building's been good to me. Virginia basketball, and we beat the Patriots in that building with the Eagles.
Nice. Yeah, that's really good.
Do you have a pet peeve?
Yeah, I have a ton of pet peeves. I don't like nosy people. I don't like people that don't wave when they walk across the crosswalk. I don't like when waiters come and drop your bill off, and then
I
they
don't like that
give
either.
you time to put the card in there. I don't like when people call and they don't say who it is. I don't like repeat calls. I got a ton of them, man.
So I know you're a big sports nut. What's your favorite MLB team?
So I guess it's the Phillies by default.
All right.
Because that's the least of the leagues that I'm interested in, but I'm going to adopt the Phillies.
All right. Favorite NBA team?
Knicks. Long time Knicks fan. Yeah, it's the longest I've been a fan of anything.
How about hockey?
The Blues. So I picked that up in St. Louis, so it's a really good time to be a Blues fan.
Who's your favorite golfer?
My favorite golfer, I'm trying to get into it. I got to take some lessons, and I'm kind of like anybody else. I like to see Tiger do well because it's obviously good for the sport. But Bubba Watson seems cool. Is he a cool guy, you think?
I think Bubba seems pretty cool. I think he might be able to outdrink you. If you did Edward 40 hands with Bubba Watson,
hey, listen, I
he
don't know
might
about
beat
that.
you.
I know I've been known lately for some other comments, but I can still drink just about anybody on the table, including you, Gussie.
All right, so last one. College baseball or college softball?
It's college softball. So I was just talking about this. My dad and I were sitting there watching it the other night, and we're just like, wow. I mean, where has this sport been? It's obviously been there, but where has it been in my sports fandom? Because it is fast paced. It's exciting. You got home runs on the regular. These girls are make your throws. How the pitching? How do you control that ball? How do you see that ball that fast? I mean, the other night, they down to their last strike. Oklahoma forces the bottom of the seventh, and they lose in the bottom of the seventh. But it was just unbelievable. Every time you turn it on, it's drama.
No, Chris, I try selling Gus on women's softball all the time. I went to University of Arizona, so it's a blue blood of college softball.
Yep.
But I tell them about the reaction time from pitcher to batter is faster than Major League Baseball.
Oh yeah, it's insane. And then the reaction time of turning, an out. Ground ball to second. It's never a sure thing. These girls are really scooting down the line, and the ball's tough. And listen, the fence is in a little bit, and these girls are just hammering the ball out of the park, and it's awesome.
Hey, we appreciate you coming on. We're going to do some promos, and I'll let you know when you're going to be on, when you're going to air, and hopefully that you reshare us on social media and
But
And give a shout out to Huddle Up with Gus, and I'll let
No
you know.
doubt. I appreciate you, man, for having me on. I'll see you up in Pittsburgh sometime.